Hey guys, welcome to another Achieve More podcast episode. My name is Anthony. You can find me on YouTube at Picksburgh. I do a lot of videos there with my girlfriend where we travel and have fun, but it's also the video home of this podcast. So if you'd like to see how handsome Michael and I are, or our guest this week, you're going to come over to Picksburgh and you'll be able to see that. Also want to introduce my co-host Michael over here at Huddle Card Collection. How you doing, brother?
Great, Anthony. How are you?
Good, man. Anything new going on with Huddle Card this week?
No, we have, we are moving right along, chugging towards the 100th episode of Collecting Profit. Trying to get over 500 subs on YouTube also, and just, cranking out as many videos as possible while trying to maintain sanity.
Understood, brother. Again, guys, make sure you follow him over at Huddle Card Collection if you haven't. And every Wednesday night, there is a live podcast called Collecting Profit. So make sure you swing by 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Without further ado, super excited to introduce our guest. We have Ben Bressington on with us today, and we're going to talk about taxes. And Ben, the floor is yours, sir. Go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about anything you'd like to.
Yeah, so my name's Ben Bressington, CEO of Automated Tax Credits. And yes, I am a funny talking person from South Boston. If you picked up that accent, maybe a little bit of Jersey mixed in with it. But no, I do land from the great country of Down Under. So you might be thinking, how the hell does someone from Down Under talk about US taxes? Well, when you move to a country here and you go after the good American dream, right? As an immigrant, you're like, well, I don't have to. I'll worry about my tax stuff later. But the IRS always remembers. They're kind of like that big old elephant, right? So when you get exposed to tax debts early, and you start to understand, and over the last few years, I became an automation specialist. So I love automating businesses, workflows. If you do it at a computer, we automate it. And I was always frustrated with finances, accounting, this whole thing, right? This whole dealing with the IRS, to be honest, is scary as all hell, right? And one of the things is I'm like, there has to be a better way. Like, this organization still survives on faxes. So we literally automated processes to fax things for people to the IRS and making it simple, because tax debt can really limit and impact people in major ways, even if you're part-time, even if you're doing this as a side hustle. And nowadays, more organizations are declaring you as an expense than you're aware, and you only find out the consequences of this when it comes tax time and tax filing. And the IRS goes, oh, we already know you earned more than this because your side hustles have already declared you as a 1099 employee. One of the things we helped people with over the last 12 months, 24 months, was literally a self-employment tax credit. Most people who were self-employed didn't realize back in 2020 and 2021, the government was handing out up to $32,000 for people who were self-employed. The small business person. I'm not talking about ERTC. I'm talking about the side hustlers, the 1099 independent contractors. If you're working for Uber, Lyft, you're a nurse, you're an independent contractor for an insurance company or any of those, and you were impacted by COVID, you were literally entitled to up to $32,000 if you filled in some paperwork. That's it. And like, we started this journey where we automated that entire process for people. I literally took 2 hours of accounting work. And what flabbergasts me is your bookkeeper or your accountant may not know all of the deductions and entitlements you can actually get. Most of them know how to file a return. They don't know how to get you what you're actually entitled to. That's a big difference. Does that make sense?
It does, but let me ask you a question with that. Why? So if I learned from you, right? Why is my guy that does my taxes gonna believe me when I say, hey, there's some things that you're missing on. I mean,
Well, the tax code is complicated, period, right? And the thing is they usually sit in a whole bunch of training that's related to filing the tax returns. There's a whole bunch of other training to deal with tax debt. Like most accountants don't know how to deal, or financial planners or bookkeepers don't know how to deal with tax debt, negotiating with the IRS, deducting and removing penalties of interest that have been charged, setting up installment plans and things like that to pay your back taxes. They don't know how to do any of that. So here's one thing, like even the self-employment tax credit, there's a whole bunch of social media out there hyping it all up. Most accountants don't even know about it. Most accountants didn't even claim it for you because it was actually issued after a year, and they have to now go back and do an amendment for 20 and 21, or now 21 specifically, because the 20 year is expired. So most accountants aren't sitting there going, hold on, let me call Michael and go, hey, Michael, for another $2,000, I can get you 15. Are you okay with that? But I'm going to have to go back and amend some of the stuff in 20, and I'm going to charge you a fee for it. Right? Did your accountant call you and have that conversation with you?
Nope.
Like they're focused on the books, the reconciling, the bookkeeping, this year's tax returns. Hey, I know, Michael, you're going to need an extension, all this type of stuff, right? They're focused on their bubble. And one of the things I've found in that industry is that nothing against them. It is a complicated job, and at times they're herding cats because they're chasing you for the receipts that you never got, right? We've all been there. We've all gone into the gas station and paid for gas and used the business card and all this type of stuff, and I'll expense that later. But I don't know where that receipt went, right? So the thing is they're focused on those tasks and not, well, hold on, the government there's over 2,000 different business grants and incentive programs. Most people aren't even aware of it. So one of the things that we're envisioning to do for people is literally create an AI that can go, you enter your information, we can analyze your past transcripts and go, hold on, you missed this in 20, you missed this in 21, you missed this in 22, because we can go and analyze all the stuff that is there now available. We can also go and start applying you for grants and subsidies. Here's another one, right? You want to, is it all right if I give you another kicker?
Go right ahead.
A lot of people invest in restaurants, food trucks. I'm just going to say restaurants right now, commercial buildings, right? Here's the thing. Most accountants will tell you that the renovation you do, right? If you, let's say I've got a restaurant, right? I'm going to put $500,000 into renovating a restaurant, which $500,000 isn't really much when you're renovating a restaurant nowadays anyway, right? But that's beside the point, right? I've gone and got a loan. I've got my 500 grand. Most of them will write that off as depreciation for 39 years. So you won't get a benefit for that for the next 39 years. That sounds okay, right? But there's two clauses under the Safe Harbor Act, under the IRS code, that allow you to get that 100% deduction the year of the renovation. And if you did that renovation within the last 3 years, you can file an amendment and claim it. So I got a question for you, Michael. In your hypothetical restaurant of sports memorabilia extreme, right? Where you got the best burgers in town, right? Yep. Would you like to have the benefit of that $500,000 deduction this year or over the next 39 years?
Oh, I'd rather have it this year.
Yeah. So, but like, let me ask you a question, right? Most accountants are writing it off over 39 years. How long do most restaurants last?
Not 39 years.
Like, let's ask a whole other question, right? Are you even going to be alive in 39 years?
True.
That's almost 40 years.
Yeah.
Like, so there's things that are just what they call, it's common practice. This is how you do it. Yeah, but if I go and tick one box and fill in one extra form, I can pull that $500,000 deduction right now.
Oh, wow.
That's wild.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And once we show it to the accountants, they're like, oh, this is awesome. I love it. Let's do that. I'm like, yeah, but then why you been doing it for 39 years for everybody else? And but some people put millions. And here's the other stuff. Like if you do it, HVAC repairs and all those renovations and all that type of stuff, you can actually leverage the safe harbor thing. But it's these little things that are oblivious to people because you hire somebody. I've hired accountants who have completely misfiled or haven't even filed. This is a common issue, right? So the thing is we're trusting these experts, but sometimes the experts are missing because they are just missing the ball. We've all been there.
Okay, Michael.
I'll say what happened to you or
a
a family friend or a family member or something that made you look deeper into this and find these things?
Yeah, so it's really been a journey over the last 2 years, right? And one of the big things is that the tax codes are so complicated. I know when my own story is that I had a tax debt of less than $10,000, right? I had a few misfilings. I had a business partner. So here's the kicker. I had a business partner who a year and a half after we wrapped up our business, he went and amended the tax returns that he filed for that business and said he paid me more than he really did, right? So then I get a nasty letter from the IRS a year later going, hey, you owe us more than we thought you did. I never got the letter because I moved addresses. And as a result, I actually found out like 4 years after the fact.
Oh,
so
wow.
a $2,500 bill at the time skyrocketed into 10 grand, right? And you're like, what the hell? And the thing is that I called around to all these experts. And because I wasn't over $10,000, they laughed at me and didn't want to deal with me because they sell me a $6,000 to $25,000 program to help me. And a lot of these companies will actually go now and get you financing to finance their fee to file some paperwork. It was only until I actually started getting connected to a whole lot of former IRS agents, right? And they're like, no, it shouldn't be like this. There's no quality do-it-yourself program. And with technology nowadays, you should be able to get help faster. And one of the things is there's a massive language barrier. One, because there's a whole part of people who speak other languages, right? But then stuff with the IRS is just complicated. You look at their forms, and a form is overwhelming. And I knew because of what I studied, which was criminology, so I kind of bring this interesting dynamics to what I do, where I'm always looking at human behavior. And I'm like, how do we make it easier? Because even when I got certified with the IRS, I call the IRS and they're like, our current hold time is 2.5 hours. And I'm sitting there going, bitch, please. 2.5 hours to get like one thing done. Right? Yeah. So like,
it's crazy.
But like, so for the average human, when do you have time to do this stuff? For that average side hustler who's moving baseball cards and doing stuff, or maybe doing 2 or 3 side hustles, selling products on eBay, right? And we were talking before we started recording, right? Like, I think people really need to understand financially that even if you're doing this part-time, the big companies are going to declare you as an expense. So they write off their investment in you, their fees in you. That's why at the end of the year, you'll get a 1099 from them. You're like, oh, I don't have to file that. I only was doing it. I'm a small guy, right? No, that means they reported you to the IRS to offset the $10 billion they made.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Most people don't understand that perspective. They don't understand the impact of that. So the thing is what we're trying to do is make it easy for the small guys, the small people who are out there who are hustling every day of the week to get access to the latest information, but to make it easy. And the thing is we built what we call these form wizards, where we literally ask you some plain English questions. And because of that, we go, yep, now you qualify for this. Oh, we've got clients that we work with where we've been able to remove $70,000 of penalty interest payments from their tax bill. So imagine having like incredible. $80,000, $90,000 tax bill. We're able to actually remove $70,000 of penalty payments, right? Late fees, all this stuff, kind of like the stuff Blockbuster used to charge you, those late fees for the videos, right? Imagine being able to get, I don't know if you guys remember, but I used to get really excited when I'd be able to go into Blockbuster, I'd sweet talk the person behind the counter with my charm and my razzle dazzle, and they would waive some of those fees.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben, what do you have to say for the person who doesn't make enough to get the 1099? So they think, hey, I didn't get a 1099, so it must not be happening to me.
So they didn't earn over $600. That's the threshold for a 1099, $600. And the thing is you may still be reported. And the thing is you need to be aware of this type of stuff, because at the end of the day, you might not even be aware that how you're filing your situation may not be even optimal for you. And the thing is this is where quality advice matters. And the problem is you can talk to 10 CPAs and you'll have 20 different ideas of what's possible, right? And did you know that the IRS themselves can't actually recommend or tell you what to do by their policy?
Didn't know that.
Interesting.
Like, people go, I'll just call the IRS and they'll help me. I'm like, no, they actually can't. And here's a little other secret. So if for any of the listeners who have a tax debt, right? 20 million people a year owe the IRS less than $50,000 every single year, right? And some of the consequences, we'll get into the consequences of that later. But the thing is most people don't understand that right now, because of what's happened in the economy and all this type of stuff, there's $15 million in penalties, or 15 million people can actually have their penalties and interest charges waived if they do it before November this year.
Oh, wow. And you're right. Wild. Probably most don't know that.
How far back can a lot of this stuff go? Like, is there like a certain time where these credits expire if you've missed them?
Most of the time we can do an amendment for up to 3 years. So every credit and every program is different. So for example, the self-employment tax credit is based on your earnings from either 20 or 21. The year they had a 2-year combo thing going on. Now it's only focused on 21. So you have to go back and you have to look at what you filed for the 21 year. But here's a little secret. Mm-hmm. Once again, most people don't know how to play the game. Most accountants don't know how to play the game. You can actually, if your income was greater in 20 than it was in 21, you can actually use the greater income and claim the higher credits for that self-employment tax credit. But once again, that credit expires April next year. And then it's gone, right? And that's something that's just paid out. And for a lot of the clients we spoke to, right, I've done tens of thousands of these now, right? We automated it. For a lot of the clients who actually owed the IRS a few grand, right, it actually was able to wipe out that bill. Or if they had an installment plan in place, they actually got cash back. The IRS actually sends you cash and goes, it's completely tax deductible. You don't have to worry about it. It's tax free. Here's 15 grand. Here's 32 grand. Don't worry about it.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So
how did you discover these different types of tax breaks? Was it, just, that experience you had where you were going through and trying to discover this stuff for yourself, or is it just a number of years you've come across these different things?
It's literally hard slog. And talking and getting more and more people who are literally specialists in their field or specialists at the IRS. And they're like, oh, did you know about like the whole thing with the restaurants? We didn't even know about that 3 months ago. All right. But then one of the guys was talking to us and he goes, oh, I specialize a lot with restaurants and helping restaurants claim this entitlement that most of them don't realize. But it's not just restaurants. It's anyone who's done commercial development or commercial renovations. All right. So and that's just one of them. And the problem is the IRS and dealing with the IRS, as intimidating as it is, as challenging as it is such a specialty thing. And it's so diverse that like there's so many tiny little check one box on a 3-page form and you've now got this entitlement. Don't check that box. You're shit out of luck.
Oh, wow.
And when you look at a lot of the accounting software, bookkeeping, it doesn't do any of this type of stuff. They know they enter the same data they did last year because what they're trying to do is help you offset your tax return, right? They're not looking and understanding of all the thousands of programs that there's out there. Like, so one of the next big things we're actually working on and going to be tackling is the in excess of 20,000 different business grants and subsidies that are available. And literally imagine if you could answer a few questions and be automatically applied to a whole bunch of grants and subsidies and just get some money back in your pocket, some lines of credit, some benefits, just because somebody was actually fighting for you. And they're like, well, Ben, how do you make money? You must be, no, we charge you a flat fee. We go, hey, to go and submit you to get to all these programs, we're going to charge you $400. Flat time fee. We're not going to charge you $5,000. A lot of these companies. So one of the things that really pissed me off is when you look at a lot of these grants or these programs, some people are charging you 20% of the money you get.
How difficult is it for you to get these people loans? Is it something that you have a high success rate with, or not loans, but grants, I should say? Is it something you have a pretty high success rate with?
Yeah, 100%. So the thing is if because we're dealing with the IRS, if you qualify, you qualify. So it's 100%. Like most people aren't aware that like, hey, so I'm going to give you another context. Let's say you've got a $10,000 tax bill, right? And what you don't realize is most of the interest and penalties they charge you is in the first year, right? So everything kind of surcharges and compounds from that first year. But by filling in one form, which is what they call their penalty abatement form, you can actually remove, as long as you haven't done this already in the last 3 years, you can possibly remove all those penalties and interest. It's just do A, B, C, you get D. But most people are intimidated to do it, or they're getting high pressure sold by some sleazy firm, because in this industry I'm in, like my competitors are spending upwards of $6 million a month on advertising. I'm in a big money game. This is a big money space because they'll go and charge you a ridiculous loan to them to go fill in some PDF forms. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build some AI assistants leveraging new technology that can go do all of that stuff for you. So we don't have that expense. I don't have to pay for a 20,000 square foot office and have 100 accountants in there processing papers and a heavy call sales team. So you know what? I pass that benefit directly onto my clients because we go, hey, we can do something for $100 for you. We can do that for $500. It's just flat fee. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
What do you have to say for those people, or what advice could you give to those people that, they do their own thing? So they use, TurboTax, or they use some kind of thing along those lines. Like, so they're not even using, a certified professional, right? They're doing it themselves because they figure, hey, I'm small, I'm peanuts, man. I'm doing little bitties, so I'm just going to use like a TurboTax. What would you have to say, for those folks?
Like, those tools are fantastic. Like, I've used those tools, well aware of those tools. They're good at what they do. But the thing is those tools are not fully designed to optimize all of your entitlements. They're doing one thing. They're trying to minimize your tax return and offset what you pay the IRS, not how you've got to pay the IRS, nor also what you're entitled to, because that's a whole other thing. And the problem with that is they may have to start asking you different questions because of different IRS forms, which means it's a change to their process. It's a change to their software. They can't do that. So this is where access to knowledge like this is priceless, because there's a few things we can already help people with now. Did you know that I wasn't aware of this consequence? If you have a tax debt, right, the IRS can put a lien on your property, right? And what happens is if you've got a lien on your property and you're trying to sell or refinance, it can become very, very problematic. But here's the thing. By filling in one form to the IRS, you can now get a refinance, because a bank won't lend you money because the bank doesn't want to be second on the mortgage to the IRS, right? The bank wants position number one.
We want to be first. Yeah.
They want to be first, because if you're not going to pay, that bank wants it. So what you can do is you can ask the IRS by submitting one document to go, I'm doing a refinance. I need you to become second lien on my mortgage so I can get this refinance at the bank. And they remove the lien and it gets replaced after the mortgage goes through, the refinance goes through. So a lot of people don't even realize they've got a lien from the IRS on a property until they go into a refinance, and then they can't refinance.
And then to your point, a lot of them don't know that they could go ahead and apply to try and just ask the IRS to basically do them a favor and just pull it back, let them get it, and then refile it against them.
They don't know. They go, because what will happen is the mortgage broker will be like, hey, Anthony, sorry, but like, you just don't qualify because we just found out you got this lien. So now everything you've done trying to get your refinance, you're like, up a creek without a paddle, right? And then because those people don't know, that knowledge doesn't get transferred onto the little person who's now like, I'm screwed, right? And they may be trying to, and once again, they don't realize that even the lien they have on that property, we could possibly help them reduce that penalty, therefore paying the IRS less. There's hardship incentives. There's all these programs that are out there. But from one tick box or one person knowing that a form exists, people just don't even know.
That's interesting. That's crazy to think of, like, all of the money that, like, we could be leaving on the table, like, over the years, just from, because honestly, like, I look at, these tax documents or any of this stuff, and it's like gibberish to me anyway. You know what I mean? So I've gone to, CPAs, and as somebody who has been self-employed, like, they've straight up told me, like, look, like, there's really no, like, they've told me straight up, like, they have no special knowledge of how to write off X, Y, and Z, especially like with, if you sell stuff on eBay, like, especially like sports cards, like most of the stuff I'd buy at like local card shows. People aren't going to hand you a receipt whenever you buy something out of their dollar box. You know what I mean? So to your point earlier, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of those guys are going to basically ask, hey, can you provide receipts for everything you bought? And a lot of times you can't, like, especially if like you're sourcing from like a flea market or, a yard sale or something like that to sell on eBay, you need.
But the problem happens when you sell it on eBay, you make a profit, that gets declared, that becomes a financial transaction. But then there's all these other programs and incentives that, like, how do you know exist unless you start tapping into conversations? And here's one of the things that I know that happens with a lot of people. So they hear IRS and their eyes glaze over. And they hear financials. And so the thing is, for me, my biggest challenge is people saying to people, this stuff exists. It's actually real. and you've literally got nothing to lose. And they're like, well, that sounds too scammy for me. I'm going to have to go talk to my CPA about it. We've had people who take our documents to the CPA. I've done, like, in 1 year, in 3 months, actually 3 months of this year, I did 27,000 applications. 27,000 applications, awesome. which have all been successful, right? But that's a whole other thing. All being successful. And people will go to me, I want my paperwork and I'm going to get my CPA to review it. I'm like, no problems. And they're like, then they go, my CPA doesn't think this is real. I'm like, yeah. Totally get it. Totally get it. Right? And then what I see happens is, because we get an alert of update, is the CPA goes and updates the document and then charges the client the fee for making an amendment for them.
Oh,
wow.
I'm like, good on them. They got their credit. But, like, this is just the way the world works.
Yeah, that's crazy. So towards the end of the podcast, we have a few segments we like to do. The first one's called No Dumb Questions. And we let an audience member ask a question of a future guest. Today, the question is from a young lady asking any advice you have. She's trying to build a new family, and she wants to know any tax advice you'd have. As somebody who's, going to be getting married and building a family, like, it's going to be completely new tax wise. So what advice do you have for her on that?
Yeah. So one of the things we're seeing is, particularly people with families, is there's a lot of entitlements and benefits available to kids and family members, even if you're looking after loved ones, right? Because they don't have to be a direct dependent, but they can be someone you're caring for, right? So one of the things is you have to be careful of the strategy in which your financial person, your CPA, or yourself, if you're doing it yourself, how you're declaring your income. Because how you declare your income could mean that you actually miss the entitlements for some of these benefits and incentives. Because they're literally like, did you have self-employment tax? Or, like, it's literally, does a number show on this line? If a number shows on this line, you're entitled. If a number doesn't show because you've tried to declare your income in a different way to minimize that tax bill you're getting this year, but you've offset these future entitlements that you could be getting, like, you've saved yourself a penny in the spite of losing $100.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to start really getting some advice and going, what are we trying to achieve here? What's even available for us? And they're different questions that most people never ask.
Makes a lot of sense.
I mean, to your point, I mean, with it taxes is, it's like a such a taboo word of people talking about it. People are afraid to talk about it. That you're right. People have no idea what they're missing out on. And like you said, most people don't even know the questions to ask of their, financial person, going ahead and taking care of this for them. They have no idea. So, that's, you can see how people can miss out on a lot of, potential benefits.
Yeah, I'll say it a different way. For that person, like, basically even on the car they get, you'll see a lot of wealthy people drive Escalades or bigger vehicles because there's bigger vehicle benefits, for example, than the minivan because of a weight class. So there's different tax deductions available to you because of the weight of a vehicle.
Interesting.
So if you're a new family, right, and you're like, I don't want to have to get an Escalade, but if there's a financial benefit, tax time and depreciation and everything that goes with that, that's actually going to be longer term, more beneficial for you. May it not be? This is why they drive the Range Rovers and like, there's massive tax things available if you ask the right questions. And the big problem is that we're trying to get ahead of people. Is, I know when I had a tax debt, like, it's scary. It's daunting. It's just like, oh, crap. Because at that time, I didn't have the money, right? I got screwed over by a few business partners. Life was hard. And I'm like, I am going to deal with this later. but I wasn't aware of the consequence that also created for me, or who to go to talk to get help, and not feel like I'm just meat in a blender for somebody who's trying to take advantage of me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We have another segment we'd like to actually kind of transition. This is a perfect transition for, it's called We Have to Ask, You Don't Have to Answer. And the question we actually have for you this week was, what is the most crazy, insane tax story you're able to share? Could be either personal or could be somebody you've helped. I'm not even sure what you're allowed to share, but again, you don't have to answer, but we have to ask.
Well, we've got a lot of testimonials where we actually show the proof letters from the IRS. So I've had people who have had IRS debts, $94,215. They only ended up paying $6,000, right? So we saved them $88,000. There's other people who were in financial hardship, and they had a business that literally went sideways, which meant they had a debt in excess of $297,000. Can you imagine that? For some people, that's more than their mortgage.
Heck
right?
yeah.
All because life happened. Like it does. It's not like you intend for it, right? And unfortunately, the IRS type stuff, the tax type stuff kind of happens after the business type stuff. And you're like, well, I thought I was going to come out at zero, but no, I've come out at negative zero, right? Mm-hmm. We were able to get people financial hardship, which means they had to pay zero. That entire stress was alleviated because they're in what they call financial hardship. And then there's a whole bunch of other things like that. And we got, lots of these. We've helped people close cases where they've had $400,000 and there was no payment. We actually got the IRS to close the case fully. Nothing. You're okay. Like, can you imagine the relief is created when this type of stuff happens for people? Because one of the things we're trying to empower people with, though, is that you can do it yourself. And sometimes you're actually better off to do it yourself.
Makes a lot of sense. No one's going to look out for you like you. So, yeah, you definitely see that. Michael, do you have any other questions for Ben?
I do, Ben. So, what one question could a person should a person ask of their CPA when they are basically getting ready to sit down with them and to do their taxes? Like, what's something that they should always ask them?
What are my options here? And if the CPA says you don't really have them, get a better CPA. Here's what I've learned. There is always options. And there's multiple options. We see a lot of people experience this type of hardship during divorce, right? Because usually one party kind of gets everything, but then also the tax liability transference also kind of transfers over to that individual. So not only do they lose the house, they also gain a massive liability for everything that they no longer have access to anymore. I would be asking, what are the options here? And what can we do ourselves? Or what could we do with some assistance? Right. Because there's more available than you're aware of.
Excellent.
How can somebody that's listening to this, Ben, how can they reach out to you if they'd want information or what would you like people listening to have access to?
Yeah, so the best resource we've made available is automatedtaxcredits.com. automatedtaxcredits.com, because our whole goal is to help you automate claiming tax incentives, reducing your tax debt, and helping you do it yourself. We want to create the world's best solution for do-it-yourself tax returns. We're even in the process of publishing our own Chat GPT tax solution. So you can go and ask it about, hey, I just received this notice from the IRS. And usually it's going to be like, what the hell does it mean? What the hell do I got to do?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Is this the one where they're taking my passport, or is this the one where they're putting me in jail? Like, which one is it? Right?
Yeah.
So the thing is we're actually going to be giving that away to people for free. It's just like,
That's awesome.
here's a specialist that is actually trained on so much more than your mom's friend who does the books for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So automatedtaxcredits.com, check that out. And we're trying to empower everyone who listens to this to deal with the IRS and do it in a way where they can pay the IRS less, but the IRS will thank them for doing it.
It's awesome.
Very good.
Really cool. Well, again, Ben, I appreciate you coming on the podcast today, man, and wish you all the best. And guys, if you have a chance, make sure you swing by Ben's website. Make sure you stop by Huddle Card Collection, subscribe to Michael's channel, and check out the live podcast Collecting Profit every Wednesday. Also, swing by Picksburgh and check the live format of this, and check out my weekly vlogs. Till next podcast, guys. God bless you. May take it easy.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm from the city